Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Metzia daf Nun Ches. We are going to begin on the bottom of Nun Zayin Mud Beis, second half from the bottom. So this goes back to our Mishnah that told us that when it comes to certain matters, there's no din ona, such as an eved, shtar, land, kakdeshos. There's no din kefel, there's no arba b'chamisha, and then it says when it comes to a shemer chinam, he's not nishba, and a noisa sacher is also not mishalim. So that's what we ended up learning, and therefore, because it says in addition to land and eved, it also mentions hekdeshos, which means that there's no din shvul when it comes to hekdesh. So on this, the Gemara wonders, Minhu, b'nei ha'ir, if you have people that lived outside of the vicinity of the Beis Hamikdash, shesholchu es shekleihem, so they weren't able to bring their shekel, which is what's typically done for the sake of the karbanos tzibor for the year. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the time in which we have to have this truma chadasha. So they sent their shkolim, as Rashi says in Adar, and unfortunately, the shliach, it got lost or stolen from the shliach. So it depends. Let's say the truma was already taken off, says Rashi. When they go to court, that there was these three different kupos, these three different areas in where they would collect and take the monies. So if, let's say, it was already taken, as we continue to Chesed Aleph, so nishboin la gizbarin. So the shliach makes a shvua to the gizbor, says Rashi, shvua pashu behen, that the shliach didn't have any form of negligence in the matter. Shehin bali din, they're actually the bal din, the mechivan shetarmu es alishka, ein achrayis aveda al balim. We say that there's no achrayis on the owner, el al hekdesh. So therefore, in this situation, the bnei ir will not have to give any more shkolim. However, v'im lav, if that's not what happened, then livnei ir, v'im lav nishmoy livnei ir. So then the shliach would make a shua to the bnei ir. Livnei ir shoykon achrayim tachtehem. So in that situation, they would actually have to give the shkolim. So what do we see over here? We see clearly that there's this inyan of having to make a shvua. Nimsu, let's say it gets found, oshech zirum, haganavim, let's say the ganavim return it. So elu shkolim, so even though they already gave shkolim a second time, the first one's also shkolim haim. And it's not going to be able to be used for the following year. But again, we see that he does make a shvua. So here he must give again another machzor shekel. But again, the whole chiddush was that you have to make a shvua. So how could our Mishnah say that when it comes to din of hektish that there's no shvua? We see clearly over here that a shvua is made. So Shmuel, here we're referring to the shliach who is being compensated for his efforts. So in other words, they wish to be paid for doing their job of guarding his shkolim. I guess they didn't do such a great job, it got lost or stolen, but the point is, that is the shvu over here. It says Rashi, he's not making a shvu of the fact that he was negligent and got lost or stolen. He makes a shvu, it's not in his rishos. Min b'nei ir, because he was doing a service, a delivery service, so therefore he should be compensated for his efforts. So Yihachi nishmoin l'gizbarim livnei ir meboile. What does it say that he makes a shua to the gizbar? He should also have to make a shua to the b'nei ir, because the b'nei ir are the ones that are going to be paying him. So Rabba nishmoin livnei ha'ir b'maimid gizbarim. You're right. You actually are making a shua to the b'nei ir, those people who gave you their shkolim, and he makes a shua, the shliach, in the presence of the gizbar, but not to the gizbarim, because right, the gizbarim are not the balei din. so that there should not be any element of anyone being suspecting that there was some foul play going on. Also, perhaps in order that they shouldn't be called sinners or negligent in the matter. Okay, so that's exactly what happens. But it says that it was lost or stolen. When it comes to a Shomer Sacha, you are chayav by Geneva Aveda. So B'hachinami, here also, Nihid Shalumi Shalmi. I understand they don't have to pay because, as we mentioned, there's a miyat of hektish when it comes to Tashlumi Shoimrim. Nonetheless, Agraihu Miyil Hafsid. They should at least lose their pay. They shouldn't get their money. So Amarabba Nignavu Ballistim Azuyin. Actually, when it says it got stolen, you're right. If it was Mamash Geneva, then Shomer Sacher shouldn't be compensated in that situation. But here was actually an Einus. It says it was stolen. It was armed bandits. And when we're dealing with Genavim who are listed Mizuyim, so that's considered to be already a level of Einus. And therefore, that level of Shmir they didn't accept upon themselves. They should still be compensated. Avdu Shetovas Finos B'Yam. Or a boat sank in the sea, which again is an Einus. Rav Yochanan Hamani, actually this could be like Rav Shimon Hidiyamar Kadashim Shechai B'Achriyus and Yeshahem Onah. That like these coins, these are Kachim, which is Yechai B'Achriyus. That, for example, if a person makes a neder and says Hari Allah, it's upon me, it gets lost or stolen, so then I have to replace it. So it's the same thing over here. We're seeing that the B'nai Ir sometimes do have to replace it. So that's the situation of being Chai B'Achrayis, and therefore that does not fall into the normal category of Kachim, in which we say that there's no Shvuah. Rather, over here, you do make a Shvuah. So we can say it's like the Shita of Rav Shimon, Yesh Lahem Onah, V'nishboyin Aleihen. So the Gemara says like this: Hatena Chad Shlo Nitrama Hatruma. I can understand if that's before the truma was taken off. Nitrama Hatruma, but once it was already taken off, Kedoshim Shenu Chabachrusin Inhu. The Sani Tarman Ad Al Ha'abed Val Al Hagavoy Val Asin Ligvois. So you wouldn't be required to have to pay for those things. Hagavoy Rashes Voidenu Baderach. You're still on the road. So you can't say it's like the sheet of Rav Shimon. Rabbi Elazar, a second shot. You're right. Midaraisa, there's no chiyuv of making a shvu at all because it's kachin. So why do we make him make a shvu? It's only din derabanan. Shvu zu tekanas chachamim hi shlo yihu b'nei adam mezalzel b'hekdeshos. We don't want people to be mezalzel and hekdesh. Says Rashi, the olam shvu zu lipater min hatashlumin hi ubeshar chinam, and therefore he's really totally pater. Kashlach mastisin deraisa pater legamri of rabbanan who the tekitin leishul yizalz b'hekdeshos b'shmirasan. It's just a din derabanan. Okay. And that's the teretz. But you're right, Maker Adin, as our Mishnah says, that by hektish you're pater from a shvuah. Question 7. B'nei ir sheshalchu shikleihem v'nigdavu to imish in Israel hatrom and ishvayin legizbarim. Kasha v'hari in shvuah v'tashlum lehektish. So either we're talking about Shomer Sacher, that he's being paid, and therefore it was stolen as an oinus, and therefore he should still be able to get paid, and that's the purpose of his shvuah, that the shvuah is being done b'maimid gizbarim, in the presence of the gizbar, in order to get paid. Alternatively, you're right, Maker Adin, there's no chi of shvuah midaraisa, but this is a shvuah d'Rabbanan, so people are not mazalzel the hekdeshos. That was question 7. I think TB 15 is almost identical. Zed davar ba'aynis kimo listim mezuyim v'heim roitzim yishava b'shvil shalim, to get paid for their work. Zeh shvu rak midrabanan shlo zalzo b'kedoshim. Very good. TA 14. Maybe it's the exact same question. Let's see what the answer is here. Shvu zu tekanas chacham shlo zalzo b'hektish. Oh, why can't it be like Rav Shimon? Vein tarts Rav Shimon the acher shnis rama truma. So in that situation, as we said, you don't always, the B'nai Ir are not always mechuyev to have to pay back another more shkolim. once the if it was already taken off, so then at that situation, the B'nai are not mechuyev. But according to our Shimon, how do we understand that, right? So we see that sometimes you should have to make a shvuah then either. Says the next piece of Gemara, so if you're getting paid, if you're getting paid to watch, so you mishalom. So Rami le Rav Yosef bar Chamel Rabba, he asked the following question. Tanat, on one hand, we learned in the Mishnah that noisei sacher in mishalom, which is what you said, that someone who is a noisei sacher, according the Mishnah, a noisei sacher is in mishalom. He doesn't pay. This is actually back on Bava on Aleph. In mishalom im nignavu mimenu, if it got stolen from him, so he doesn't have to pay. So even though normally shomer sacher is mechuyev for gneva v'aveda, however, when it comes to kachim, he doesn't have to pay. Okay, so that's what that means. So that's one hand. It says in mishalom minhu. For the Gemara, it also says hasayches apayil, if you hire workers, lishmar sapara, and the purpose is for him to watch over a para, not just some stam par, but a para duma. Lishmar satinik, to watch a kid. Lishmar hazroim, to watch over some seeds. Rashi says over here, stay ha-mivareches. This is like a field which it's early growth. Uzrua l'oimer kaidum pesach, and you're growing it for the sake of the omer before Pesach. Shivim yoim, 70 days. Kamrina b'manachos inami b'shvius safichim. We're talking about the older overgrowths of shvius l'oimer shtei halechem. So this has some significant purposes for kachim. Ein noisin lo Sachar Shabbos. You can't pay this guy if he's a schir yoim. If he's being paid by the day, so you can't pay him for just working on a Saturday because you're not allowed to work on Shabbos, right? So you can't do that. Fikach and achrayas Shabbos alav, and therefore there's no achrayas on him. Says Rashi, im ira behem kilkul b'Shabbos ein chayav l'shalom. If something happens on Shabbos, it's not his fault because he's not being paid. So normally a shomer sacher is chayav for Geneva Aveda. But if you're not being able to get paid on Shabbos because you're only being paid by the day, and let's say it's only Saturday you're working, then you can't do it. Hoyes Shabbos, what means you're getting paid for the week, or for the month. Shana, Shvua, so you're being paid for maybe for a year or for the entire Shemitah cycle. Noisel Schar Shabbos. So there you could include the amount for Shabbos. As Rashi says, Shenivlu b'schar shar yomim. There's a din havla, which is a huge heter, that even if you're working on Shabbos, but since you work other days, so we say it's like absorbed in. So therefore, even though technically you're working on Shabbos, but we can say, well, you're really being paid all the other days, and therefore you can be paid also then. But the downside is if something happens, let's say it gets lost or stolen, then you are chayiv. Now, ma'ila l'shalom. That must mean you have to pay. Now, even though we're talking about kachim, I thought when it comes to things of hektish and things that are lost or stolen, that you're not chayiv to pay. That's what we said in our Mishnah. Over here, it seems like you do. Well, lahafsid scharo. It just means that you'll lose your payment. You won't get paid. But the reality is, you still will not have to pay either. So when it says there's no achrayas Shabbos on you, hachinami dolhafsit scharo, does it just mean that you're not going to get paid if you work for the day? We already know that you can't get paid. It already says you don't get paid. So then when it talks about achrayas, then what do you mean? If it says that there's no achrayas, it has something to do with you not losing money. So why would you think if you're not even getting paid? So why would you? Of course you're not going to have to pay. So it's a little bit difficult to understand. So Ishtik, he was quiet. It was hard to understand. So Amalei Midi Shmielach Baha. Anyone answer this? Amalei Hachi Yamar Rav Sheshes B'Shekanu Miyada B'Chinam Rav Yochanan B'Shekanu Miyadai. So he acquired liability that he would pay if anything happens, even though technically he's pater, but here he accepted explicit responsibility. That's shikana miyadai. Says Rashi, she'imi kalkil shmiraso hishalim. I will pay. Havadi shalim, then he will. Shahari harid atzmo kach. He's the one who made this declaration. If he didn't say it, then he wouldn't have to. But since he did say this, so therefore that's the din. And therefore, of course, if shekana biyadai, so then Yutaka would have to pay. However, otherwise, if you only worked on Shabbos, so you're not going to get paid, and you're still not going to have to pay either. Rav Shimon Amar Kadashim Shechab B'Achriyusin Yesha Hama'ona B'Shen Chai B'Achriyusin Ein L'Hamona. She says it's all totally whether or not you have to reimburse it. So in a neder, which is harei lie, so then it's like mine. So therefore, there is a din ona because it's more connected to me. However, in the dove, I say zoo this. So if the animal gets lost or stolen, I don't have to get another one. So it's more disconnected from me, and therefore there would be no din ona. Tani Tanagamedu Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abba Kedashim Shechab B'Achriyusin Chayev. So in that situation, you are chayiv. Why? She'ani kair behen, because I will read the pasuk b'Hashem v'chichesh. That when it comes to hektish, that it's considered to be regarding Hashem v'chichesh. In other words, this pasuk would teach us, as it says, umo b'Hashem, that you cause a treachery to that which is kachim to Hashem, and therefore you would be chayiv to pay. In that situation, I read the word ba'misoi, that it's his friend. That's if you're not chay b'achrayas. So amalei klapilaya. This is a little bit confusing. You would think it's the opposite. Well, which way are you going? As we continue the chesed beis, ifcha mistabra, amalei Ismay. Maybe we should delete this whole statement because it should be the other way around. It's hard to understand. It says Rashi, Kol Devarim Nirin Hefech. Everything seems opposite. If it's not Chai B'Achrayas, then it's more to Hashem Ninhu. Tvei Mishachai B'Achrayas. If it's Chai B'Achrayas, it means it's more like mine because I'm responsible to reimburse it. So Amrulei Lo. Don't delete this. Hachi Karmi, this is what he meant to say. Kadashim Shechab B'Achriyusin, something which is chayiv to replace. Chayiv, in that situation, you're chayiv disrabu mabah Hashem v'chichesh. That we learn out from this pasuk that you're chayiv. Sheinu chayiv B'Achriyusin pater demiat ba'amitai v'chichesh. We'll actually use as a miyat that says ba'amisai v'chichesh, and therefore because you're not chayiv b'achrayis, so therefore it belongs to Hashem. So then you just have to change the words around. Also, when it comes to a Torah, if you sell a Sefer Torah, or jewels, or an animal, there's also no din on na. Tanya Yehuda Eimer Afa Meicher Sefer Torah in lo na. Why? A Torah is precious, it's priceless, there's no value on Torah. So therefore, if someone needs a Sefer Torah, even if it's overvalued and oversold, there's no din on na. You want to pair them. You want to pair them up. Another strong ox, or maybe a nice pearl to have like two pearls next to each other. So understand every item should be that way. These are more chashiv. Some things which you may want to pair them up, but it doesn't mean it's chashiv enough that there will be no din or na on it. Until when do we say there's no din or na? So first of all, let's look at Rashi Zavgan. You want to find another ox like it. Fine. That's the idea. So Omer Meimer ad kadei demayhem, up until its value. So you can almost basically double. Tanya Behuda Memisera Omer Afa Meicher Sus, someone who sells a horse, Sayif, knife, V'chatitoim, a shield, B'milchama, for the sake of war, Ein Lahem Ona, Mimnei Sheish Mahen Chayi Nefesh. These are all weapons that you need for war, and if war's coming, so you want to make sure you have all these things prepared and everything there. So it's not going to matter how much it costs. What matters is the preservation of your life, and therefore, because of that, there's no on that either. Says next Masnisin. Says the Mishnah, Kashem Shoinel B'Mekach HaMemcher, just as we've been discussing in the past few blot, there's a notion of fraud in causing someone to this harm with their money. Also, when it comes with hurtful words, there's a din ona. Lo yomer, for example, don't say to a person, how much is this thing worth? You have no interest in buying it. You just decide you're interested in just curiosity, how much certain things are, and you're leading them on to think that you're a potential buyer. If you have someone who's about tshuva and say, I remember you, all the sins that you did, that's onas devarim, that's hurtful. If he's a convert, I remember you when your fathers were not Jewish, or you did all these sins. Says the Gemara, the pasuk says, "Lo sonu ish es amisai." You're not allowed to afflict your friend. So it's banas devarim akos medaber. That pasuk is actually talking about with words. It means overcharging. Now, which we said is clearly it's talking about metaltalin. We're talking about money. So so what do you do with this extra pasuk? It's banas devarim. So how do we understand this? Like our Mishnah said, if the guy's a convert, and he wants to learn Torah, don't say, your mouth, which was filled with non-kosher, disgusting foods, you're going to learn Torah which comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't speak that way, because they're different people now. If Yisurin come upon a person, if illnesses, a person buries his children, don't say Kadesh, just like the friend said to Eov, Halo Yerascha Kisvasecha Tikvasecha V'Sayim Derachecha, that your fear to those who are foolish is your hope. Zachar na mihu naki avad, you should remember who is clean. Im hayu hamarim mivakshim tavua mimenu. Fine. So basically, you can't speak harshly. The person's suffering with these terrible losses. You can't speak this way, in which is going to obviously be extremely painful. Im hayu hamarim mivakshim tavua. Say a person has donkeys that wish grain, workers, donkey drivers, they want food. Go to someone else he sells grain. You know he's never going to sell. You have some guy who needs food, go over there, he's going to sell something, and you know he's not going to. Don't window shop by casting your eyes toward a sale, when you have no money. This is in your heart. The pasuk says that you should fear Hashem. No one else knows what your intention is, but precisely at that moment you have to fear Hashem. Worse is afflicting someone with your words than losing money. First of all, this is question 9. So first of all, it says only by oinas devarim. When it comes to harming someone's money, it's their money. As opposed to your words, that's begufo, which is very interesting. It's not just words. You're physically harming a person's body. You're causing physical, emotional trauma and pain when you speak harshly to another person. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer Zen niten lahishabain, v'zel niten lahishabain. When it comes to money, you can always give it back. If you overcharge someone, you cheated someone, you can give that money back. But you can never take your words back. Once it's done, it's done. Tani Tani Kamid Rav Nachman Rabbi Yitzchak. Kol hamalben pnei chaver barabim kil shevech damim. Anyone who embarrasses his friend, it's like murder. It's true. The chazina the azul sumka. I see the person's face is red. Vyasi chivra, and by the embarrassment it turns white, pale like a ghost. Armali abayil rabdimi b'marava b'may zahiri. So he said, in the West, how are they careful? In Eretz Yisrael, Malay bach vure ape. Diam Rav Chanina hakol so bach vure ape, with the whitening of the face. Let's see if there's a Rashi on this. Not really. Okay. Everyone is going to go to Gehenna except for 3 people. That's not very comforting. Anyone who goes to Gehenna will come up. There are 3 that are going to go down and apparently never come up. We'll see Taisus in a second. A person who has relations with a married woman. If you embarrass someone, if a person gives his friend a nickname, so that could be embarrassing, even though his name has been threshed upon. Says Rashi, Kvar Hurgul Bakach, he's used to being made fun of this particular name. He's not embarrassed by it so much anymore. Your intention is to degrade him, and therefore it's still not acceptable. Says Taisus. Okay. Chutz megimel shiyardim in oilim. It doesn't mean these 3 people are going to remain in Gehenna for eternity. If you do have relations with a married woman, not a good thing, but you will have a portion eventually that will come. Most people, when they go to Gehenna, as the Gemara discusses at length in Rosh Hashanah, Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, you're Masafsafin. It's only for a short period of time as a cleansing process. Then that's it. You're only in Gehenna for a very short amount of time. The Ein Or Shel Gehenna Sholet Behen, and the fire of Gehenna doesn't have much power. It's brought down in Erevin and the very last daf in Chagiga, like Kavachaymer, that it doesn't penetrate into the Mizbeach. The fire doesn't affect the Mizbeach. Every Yid has so many mitzvos. Fire won't penetrate. There are those who are judged forever. If you embarrass someone in public, you embarrass someone in public, there's no portion. There are those people who, after 12 months, will leave Gehenna. The mishpat of a Rosh is 12 months. Now, even though it's true they won't have a portion of the world to come, even a Malbnei Chaver Barabim, who is likened to a murderer, will only be in Gehenna for 12 months. They're no longer going to have Olam Haba necessarily, but they're not going to be judged anymore. They'll be like in this middle ground. Certainly there are other people that are worse, such as Abikaris or Min. They're judged forever, and I and the rest of Taisus. Okay, we're going to stop there. That was question 9, and let's see if we have another question. Adkan.